So midway through Wimbledon, I get the news that Darren Waller, I might be a little late on this, I was just getting back from work. Darren Waller gets traded to the Miami Dolphins, comes out of retirement for a 6th-round pick. And I think we have to understand and spin this a certain way. You know, if you are spinning this thinking that we're getting the Darren Waller from 2022, 2023 for 1,000 yards, all of that stuff, I don't think that that's what they're trading for. And I'm gonna explain why. So what I think we needed with the tight ends that I mentioned, you know, Cole Kmet and all of that, the way that I see it right now is they want to get a contract done with Zach Sealer, and that's kind of the priority here. So when you look at, you know, a Michael Mayer or a Cole Kmet or a Mark Andrews or any of those tight ends, you're going to probably have to pay them money. And most likely what we're trying to do right now, for the Miami Dolphins, we're trying to draft a tight end this coming year, and didn't want to pay a whole bunch of money. Michael Mayer probably is going to cost like a 4th or a 5th because he's still a 2nd-round pick that, you know, has a lot of potential. Cole Kmet will probably cost like a 3rd or 4th-round pick. You know, he had a great year last year. Mark Andrews, same. He's probably going to be a 5th or 6th-round pick, but you're probably going to have to pay him. The thing that I like about the Darren Waller trade is he's not going to cost a lot of money because he can't request a whole bunch of money coming out of retirement. He's going to get like a minimum contract because that's essentially what you're getting. You're getting a retirement guy that really hasn't played in a year. So he's not going to ask for a long-term contract. And you have to spin it like this. Again, we're not going to be getting a superstar Darren Waller. I don't expect that coming out of retirement. But Darren Waller definitely blocks better than Jonnu Smith. And I could say if you get half of what Darren Waller was when he was in his prime, I think you definitely have a sufficient piece, and it's a placeholder. That's essentially what we're doing right now. You got to understand that the tight end that we were going to get, we want to draft and develop talent. That's the way that we're going on this team right now. So what I think is really happening is Darren Waller is the perfect placeholder. You get him probably for a year. Maybe he retires after this year or something like that. And you can draft a tight end in this next coming draft, but you get a piece that isn't going to cost a lot of money, didn't really cost much more than a 6th-round draft pick, and you have the potential to get someone that, if you compare Jonnu Smith versus Darren Waller, like this last year of Jonnu Smith versus Darren Waller in his prime, Darren Waller was way better. Like the potential for Darren Waller coming to this team for a minimum contract, like he's not going to get a lot of money. The possibility that you could have is you could get, you know, a semblance of what he was in 2022. I think Darren Waller is definitely faster and bigger and all of that than Jonnu Smith. You're getting a better Jonnu Smith if he comes the way that he is. I don't think that he's going to be similar to those years. But I think it's the perfect placeholder. And that's what I think we have to understand about the Darren Waller trade. We're not trying to get a superstar. We're not trying to get a Tyreek Hill. You know, it's a 6th-round pick. He's going to ask for probably maybe like $2 million, $3 million, maybe even the same contract that Jonnu Smith had this last year for like $3 million. And you're getting a guy that, again, there's a potential. And I don't think people are understanding that with Mike McDaniel's offense has the potential to be a very good year for Darren Waller. You know, he doesn't have to have 1,200 yards. But just be a red zone weapon, be somebody that Tua can rely on throwing the ball to, and you'll have a place in this offense. And again, you have him for this 1 year, and then this coming draft, we're loading up on a lot of different draft picks. You draft a tight end in this coming year, and you develop them. I think they also do see it, you know, when it comes to the tight end position, I think they do see that Conyers has some potential to develop into something that could be on the field. You know, they still rely on Tanner Conner. They think that he's going to be something, so we'll see what happens with that. But I think with the Darren Waller thing, it's definitely kind of like the perfect placeholder till we draft a tight end or get a young guy in free agency or whatever it is. It's the perfect guy that, again, you can pay him the minimum amount, and he can have the potential to have a breakout year this coming year. And, you know, I don't expect him to have 1,000 yards, but if he comes into this year, has like 500-600 yards and a couple touchdowns, I would even take like 300-400 yards and like 6 or 7 touchdowns, just giving Tua, you know, it's going to be that guy that even Jonnu wasn't really like a spectacular catch jumping over someone catching the ball. Darren Waller is that type of guy where you can definitely take it, throw it up, and he'll, just like a basketball player, jump up and go get it. So you're giving Tua an extra weapon that can do something like that. Because honestly, Jonnu Smith was more of a screen type of tight end where you get him the ball and he can make somebody miss. Darren Waller is much more of, okay, you have a linebacker on him, throw him the ball where only he can get it, and he's going to come down with it. That's the type of tight end that Darren Waller is. And like I said, I don't expect him to have 1,000 yards, but if he comes into this season and he has like 400 yards and like 6 or 7 touchdowns, I'm okay with it. You get a placeholder and you have someone that can definitely step up and give you another option, and you can start giving your contracts that you need. I think the underlying thing of all of this is, instead of getting more contracts like they would have been doing, they're trying to build a youth movement, as my boy Daniel Meehan has kept saying. They're trying to do a youth movement, and they're trying to get the least amount of money to pay for a placeholder because they want to draft a tight end. And what they're also doing is they're using that so that they can pay Sealer. We racked up a bunch of cap space. They're probably looking into giving Sealer a contract, and that's what's going down right now. You don't want to get a guy that's going to cost you, $8 million a year, and it's someone that you're just getting out of a trade. You don't want to do that. A tight end, especially the way that college has been going, tight ends are very, very much so becoming very easy to draft. A lot of tight ends are coming out of, college that really step into the NFL and they just kind of do their thing. It's been a past couple years that maybe 3-4 tight ends come out and, they're doing their thing. You can draft a tight end in the second and third round, he becomes something. And like I said, I think they're also looking into developing Jalen Conyers. I think they see something in him. And we have to think of it like a placeholder. We're not thinking of a dude that, he's 32, not thinking of a guy that's going to come in and you're going to give him a contract for 5 years or whatever it is. You're having a placeholder. He's going to do his thing for this year, and then next year we're going to draft a guy and develop Jalen Conyers and have a much better tight end room. Because like I said, Jonnu Smith couldn't block. Darren Waller can definitely block a little better, and you get somewhat of a weapon. I think it's a good trade. I think it's a very good trade. I like it. I like it. And pay that man Sealer. That's the essential thing about all of this. Pay Sealer. We need him to be paid. That's the person that we need to pay on this team. Sealer needs to get paid. End of story. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this trade. As always, guys, fins up, baby. Love you all. Peace.